Welcome, friends. Welcome, everyone, to Black Power Day. We are so excited that you came and you're here to join us. We honor your time and we are so grateful that you chose to be here with us today. Today, our topic will be just that on Black Power and energy efficiency and how we as Black people can become more energy efficient and how we can get into those fields, so on and so forth. So today, our first guest will be Congressman Bowman, who will be interviewed by our Urban Legacy President, Mr. Shane Olsen Long.
Congressman, it's good to see you.
Good to see you as well, brother. How's everything?
Thank you for coming. Very good. I'm excited. I'm excited for tonight.
Great to be here, man. Great to support.
You have been doing such incredible activism and incredible representation. Like thank you for everything that you've been doing. I mean, we focus on economic justice with Urban Legacy, and this event is focused on energy, but I just have to say thank you for all of the work that you've been doing for criminal justice, for, environmental justice, economic justice in general, before we even talk about energy specifically.
Thank you, brother.
Absolutely. So we're here tonight to discuss how Black people can take an ownership stake in the energy economy. We know that a lot of projects require federal funding, federal support, and even leadership from the top down to get people socially aware and active in what is important in energy. Tonight, with all of the rest of the guests that we have, they all have their niches. Some own energy companies, some own energy initiatives in government. But I want to ask you from the top down, what has been happening and what's coming down the pipeline where we can get an ownership stake in it?
So that's a great question. First thing I want to say is it has to be both a top-down and a bottom-up approach. So here's what I mean by that. I am lucky enough to serve on both the Education and Labor Committee as well as the Science and Tech Committee. And I'm actually chair of the Energy Subcommittee on Science and Tech. So what we do is we focus on hearings that align with the needs of a 21st century economy. It's very important, first and foremost, for us to be as informed as possible on not just what's here, but what's coming. And what's here is a climate catastrophe. We are currently living in a climate catastrophe. So myself and members of the progressive movement are pushing for something called a Green New Deal. What does that mean? That means we need to end our dependency on fossil fuels within the next 10 years. If we do not do so, the earth will continue to warm, and the warmer the earth becomes, the more likely we are to have drastic weather events that are literally killing people. Think Hurricane Sandy and Hurricane Katrina as two examples. In addition, this climate catastrophe that we're living in is causing droughts, not just in this country, but throughout the world. Those droughts are leading to famine. That famine is leading to mass migrations and conflict and war and the death of millions. So as we move away from fossil fuel, we are moving towards renewable energy. That is geothermal, that is wind, and that is solar. So from a bottom-up perspective, learn everything you can about wind, solar, and geothermal energy. Learn specifically about energy storage and energy transport. Learn the ins and outs of all of that. Form small businesses in alignment with this, because I'll tell you right now, the government will be funding these areas in the neighborhood of trillions of dollars beginning as early as possibly this summer, because the next presidential infrastructure bill, the American Jobs Plan, it's a $2 trillion plan. And we're pushing the president to invest even more. We're pushing the president to invest upwards of $10 to $15 trillion. And to focus, the president is already committed to focusing 40% of that money on Black and brown communities and Black and brown businesses. But it's our job to continue to hold the president accountable to discuss how that money is going to be implemented in our communities. It's not just about the big number. It's about how is that money going to be invested. So top down, we're investing in wind, we're investing in solar, we're investing in geothermal, we're investing in storage, we're investing in transport. Learn all you can about that. And we want to invest in, you've been working with my office, so I want to invest in people and communities that have been historically kind of left out of these conversations.
Of course. You answered one of my follow-up questions I was going to ask, because we saw other implementations with small businesses in Black communities that we were largely left out of the PPP rollout. And even I discussed with Andrea Stewart-Cousins in our first event, as far as our state goes, we are largely left out of minority and women-owned business enterprise contracts, the MWBE contracts, even though, it'll say that 30% of contracts are representative of MWBEs. It turns out that usually the contracts will go to white women versus the Black community. And we saw, inequitable distribution of the PPP. So to hear that 40% of, the investment that we have will be dedicated to minority communities, it is, it's encouraging. But just like you said, what do we need to do to take the next step to make sure that money gets into the right hands? Because a lot of times when we have these rollouts, it's a cash grab for the status quo. What do we do to, get new businesses involved?
So great question. Couple things. So before I go to the jobs plan, I want to talk about the American Rescue Plan that was just passed, which is a 1.9 trillion transformative plan for the country, transformative plan for our state, and transformative plan for historically underrepresented communities. So that plan brought in resources at the state level, at the city level, at the village level, and at the county level. And it brought in more money for our public schools. So there's going to be a lot of resources coming in that can be used right now around some of these initiatives that we're discussing. The thing about the 40% that's slightly different from MWBE, because you're right about everything you said about MWBE. The 40% is targeting communities most historically impacted by climate change. Those communities, 9 times out of 10, are Black and brown communities, right? So if you look at the Bronx, for example, where, if you live in the Bronx compared to the other 4 boroughs, you're more likely to die of asthma than the other 4 boroughs. If you live in the Bronx, you're 3 times more likely to die of asthma than anywhere else in the country. When you look at public schools in our red line communities, I believe, I forget the number, but a very high number live very close to highways, which, means they're inhaling the fossil fuels.
Right.
I'm sorry.
Right here in Westchester, we have an F rating for our air quality. So
right. That's why groups like Sustainable Westchester even exist. Right. So the 40% are going to those communities specifically harmed by climate change. So slightly different. Now, with regard to the MWBE point, because that's a very important point. When we look at the category of minority, that's a big category. So it's already watered down and less likely to include Black in those categories. When we talk about women, once again, large category, harder to get to Black when we're talking about all women.
Right.
So we, as we work to mark up legislation, provide amendments to legislation. It's very important for us to be as explicit, as specific with the language as possible, so that the money gets to where it needs to go. So if we need to write black, we say black. If we need to say black, again,
please.
yeah, but that's what we've already been doing, and I know my colleagues are as well. If we need to say HBCUs, we say HBCUs. That's critical. But in addition to that, when the money comes from the feds, it often goes through the state budget office. It often goes through county. It often goes directly to the city. It's important for me to engage, local elected officials as well, to just stay in communication with them and help with implementation. But it's really important for Black entrepreneurs in the district to also engage as well. Like, we need to know the money's coming and be ready to engage and have our ducks in a row in terms of, paperwork, support letters, whatever it is we need to make sure we can access the resources coming in. Right.
In a similar light, talking about, local entrepreneurs who are on the ground implementing these things, working in the nonprofit space, I see it a lot that new organizations, I'm going through it as a nonprofit president, new organizations are not given as much priority as those who have been entrenched, even though those who have been entrenched are clearly a part of the infrastructure of what's been missing. And my question is, how do we onboard new organizations that are going to bring innovation like what Urban Legacy is trying to do and what like so many other organizations are trying to do? How do we make sure that the money is also, just a part of it at least, is appropriated for new organizations to create innovation in communities that have not seen it for decades?
So collaboration is key there, right? As a new company, you have to show that you have community support. So the more you're able to show community support, the better. Now, you can show that with letters from the grassroots. You can show that with letters from other elected officials. All of that goes a long way. You could also show that by having a relationship with your member of Congress who will prioritize your company if the member of Congress feels that the company is providing a good service to the community. There's also a lot of conversation around public-private partnerships. So if you have private support at any level from a variety of companies, that'll show that you're more viable going forward. So the more you can show viability via grassroots, via other elected officials, via private investment, where necessary, the more likely you are to get supported. But you're right. It's tough to be new on the block in any context, because you got to really scrap and grind and elbow your way in. But the other thing is, and this is why I started with education, if you have a specific skill set that's unique that no one else has, you are more likely to be supported as well. And that's another thing, and this connects to your first question. We're working on a lot of policies around workforce innovation, apprenticeship programs, pre-apprenticeship programs, and K-12 education, because there has to be a pipeline from our schools to post-secondary opportunities to the workforce and everything in between.
It's interesting that you bring up the relationship between participating in energy and education. Many people might not know, but you're also a school principal, or at least your voters know. But many people might not know that you're a school principal as well. So our process tonight is to show people what actions to take to onboard people into owning clean energy. What advice would you give to a principal, to a school board, to a superintendent? What advice would you give them to start programs that are effective for Black children who have been left out of the process and don't have the broader infrastructure and support from their communities? What should they do? Because you're a turnaround king, actually. You weren't only a principal, but you created a school, actually.
Yes.
Right?
Yes, sir. Yes. So this might be the most important question in terms of long-term viability and sustainability in every community, but particularly the Black community. What we need to do in our education system is move away from what we've been doing for the last 20 years.
Right.
And do a better job of aligning what happens in our schools with the challenges and demands of the current society and the current economy. So what does that look like? We need more STEM education, much more of a focus on science, technology, engineering, and mathematics, not just in the theoretical sense, but in the application sense. You have to learn and apply. Kids love to learn by doing, making mistakes, revising through iteration. The process of iteration is not in our schools enough. That needs to be brought in. Collaboration and cooperative problem solving is critical. Give kids a problem, real world, allow them the opportunity to wrestle with it and come up with a variety of answers to solve the problem. That is critical. We need the arts involved in all aspects of our schools. Now, what people hear the arts, they think theater, they think drawing, they think music. Yet it's all of that. But here's what the arts also does. It unlocks your curiosity. It unlocks your creativity. And we need curiosity and creativity as much as anything right now in this moment, because there are problems we can't even predict as of yet that will be coming up, and we have to foresee them and be creative enough to solve them. So more STEM, more the arts, more collaboration, and less of what we're doing now, which is pretty much, rudimentary, rote, assembly line style education that doesn't even engage the heart of our kids. What I'm talking about engages the heart and the mind at the same time, and engages their social skills and their emotional intelligence, which is also key. So, I know New Rochelle has a new superintendent. That's something I would share with him. The school boards, we got to think differently. This is our moment. This is our, we all went to school. We all read about American history and the amazing things that we've done throughout our history, Industrial Revolution and the Brooklyn Bridge and the elevator and the Holland Tunnel and all of that innovation. We're about to enter a new age of that right now. And it's time for our schools to catch up and the people in the community to catch up as well.
Excellent. That's exactly what we need to hear, because we need that innovation. And it's interesting that you brought up the arts and what it entails, because even architecture, which is a major part of the sustainability economy, architecture is architecture and design, but people don't think of it that way.
Art and design. Yes. Right.
So how do we, this is the last question, because I know you probably have to go and I'm trying to keep you as long as possible. But just last question, how could we, what do we do from, those of us that are community leaders, those of us that have platforms, what do we do to help people understand that they can be a part of this too? How do we help them understand that art is broader, or that, the STEM education could unlock doors for them that people in general have never seen before? What could we do?
we need as many assemblies and town halls and convenings as possible. Things like this need to be happening on a weekly basis. And we need to work in collaboration to bring it to the people, to engage them in the process. This reality that we currently live in right now is obsolete. We are about to create a new reality, and we need the ideas of every single member of the district to be a part of that conversation. I don't care if you don't have a high school diploma. I don't care if you work in a job for 30 years and you're about to retire and you don't want to hear all that. I don't care if you're a middle school student. I don't care if you're recently, formerly incarcerated, recently coming home. I don't care if you have a problem with addiction. we need everybody in the community because everyone has brilliant ideas that will help us to build this new world. And the last thing I want to say is we cannot let white supremacy, white nationalism, racism, and everything that many out there are doing to try to hold us back, we cannot allow that to hold us back. We have to rediscover our brilliance as Black and brown people in this world, our brilliance as Black people, and allow that to shine through for us to create a world that, you know, that we created thousands of years ago in Egypt, in Kemet, and in the first democracies, and all of that. We need to rediscover that. It's in us, and it's time for us to unlock it. And the only thing we need to do is get free up here and unleash our ideas on the world through collaboration, though, because that's the key.
Right.
Friendly competition, because, you know, that's fine. But if we stay trying to one up each other,
right,
then, you know, against a monster of supremacy, maybe one of us would win, or two of us will win, but the other 100 would lose, right? We all gotta win. If we all don't win, then we all lose.
Right. It's so interesting that you say that, because I talk to my team all the time that we need to be borderless. People ask, well, what is Urban Legacy's reach? We're digital first because we see the Black community as a whole. And I show them that so many emerging economies are actually in Africa, and they're not bogged down by a lot of the legacy systems, the electronics and things like that we have. And we can do so much if we actually push for innovation. So thank you so much for even saying that. And thank you for being here tonight. I hope I could interview you again one-on-one so we could get into other issues like, you know, ending prohibition and things like that. I'd love to speak to you again very soon if you're available.
Of course, brother. You got my number, man. Hit me up anytime.
Got it. Perfect. Right. Thank you so much.
Enjoy. Yep.
Next, we are going to have Jasmine Graham, who is a manager at Sustainable Westchester. She's going to be interviewed by our operations manager, Mariam Muhammad.
Thank you, Shane. Hi, Jasmine. How are you?
I am great after those words from Congressman Bowman.
I know. I'm like,
that got me energized. I'm glad you guys couldn't see me behind the screen because I was just clapping and snapping and So I'm so glad to be here.
Thank you for joining us. I want to dig right into what we're going to be discussing today, because I think for starters, you are a young woman of color in this field. Talk to us a little bit about what you do, and just give us a little bit of background about what you do.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for asking. So I am the manager of the Westchester Power Program at Sustainable Westchester. And so we are actually a bulk purchasing program for renewable electricity. There are 28 municipalities in Westchester that join together to buy their electricity in bulk. And so we're able to get people competitive rates on green power. And we have a lot of people, over 100,000, that are on renewable electricity here in Westchester because of this program.
Wow, that is absolutely amazing. So the first question I want to ask you is, how do you save on being more energy efficient? Talk to us a little bit about that.
Yeah, I think that there's a lot that homeowners can do to be more energy efficient. I think that there's a lot that people don't know. A lot of people think that you have to put solar on your own roof. And for a lot of people, I would say that is a great start. And if you have the means to do that, you absolutely should. When you put solar on your roof and when you add a battery storage to that, you basically become your own utility. You know, you are powering your own home. You have a battery so that if there are any kind of service issues, you have a resilient system in your home. But everyone can't do that. So there's other options like community solar that actually allows people to subscribe to a solar project in another area, maybe a few towns over. It just has to be in the same utility zone. And then once you subscribe to that project, you can get up to 10% off of your electricity bill. It's a program that not a lot of people know about, but it is a win-win-win. You won't find anything out anywhere else where you're being offered a 10% discount on your, Con Ed bill or your National Grid bill or any of these companies. And so at Sustainable Westchester, we do have community solar programs. And I guess I can't pop a link in the chat, but people can sign up at sustainablewestchester.org/solar. And there are active projects right now. So you can sign up today and then, within a few months, start getting that 10% discount. A similar thing that people don't really know about is something called demand response. And that allows people to reduce their usage during peak time. So let's say July 4th, it's 100 degrees out and the grid is at capacity. You can actually get a notification through an app called Grid Rewards, and it'll tell you to reduce your usage for a few hours. And then at the end of the year, you get a check in the mail. Last year, we had a pilot, and there was 4 events, about 2 to 4 hours each. And people on average got a check that was $100 to $200 at the end of the year. So it's a really simple thing, and actually signups for Grid Rewards end April 30th to be signed up by this summer. So if anyone, you got an electricity bill and you want to lower it, just all you have to do is download the Grid Rewards app, and it's on Google Play and the Apple App Store as well.
Wow, that's amazing. So if you're not necessarily into saving the planet, saving the earth, which we all should be, right? Just think about the financial benefits that come with being more energy efficient, okay? So the next question I want to ask you is, what would you say needs to be changed in the energy industry to have Black people of color, more inclusive?
Yeah, that's a great question. There's a lot that we can do to improve the current energy system. I mean, the current energy system, besides the fact that it's killing us, which is a really important thing to point out, is that the current energy system doesn't work. We are killing the planet, and we are killing the people that inhabit the planet. So we have to have a new system. There's actually a lot that we can do to change the system. There's a lot of policy related things that people can be advocating for. And as Congressman Bowman mentioned, the federal legislation for climate is taking this Justice 40 approach. And so Justice 40 is that 40% of benefits need to go to disadvantaged communities, but they're actually defining what a disadvantaged community is right now. And so we can have a say on that. And as much as it's beneficial to get involved in federal policy, and I definitely have a lot of federal policy suggestions, things like capping the energy burden. In low-income communities, people pay as high as 20% of their income per month to power their home, whereas an average person or essentially a wealthier person is able to spend as low as 3% of their income. So there should be a cap. There should be a maximum, right? If you make such little money that you are paying 20 or 30% of your income just to power your home, you deserve some kind of subsidy. So I definitely suggest advocating for subsidies, advocating for greater flexibility in financing clean energy projects. So right now, there is some things that people can do in terms of on-bill financing, but we need to expand that. If you want to do some kind of clean energy development on your home, you should really be able to pay that off on your monthly electricity bill. Similar to energy subsidies and on the financing topic, we need to provide reparations to these frontline communities and these environmental justice communities who have borne the brunt of these environmental burdens, most particularly, with communities of color and Black communities, most often waste facilities, hazardous facilities, and high polluting facilities are sited in communities of color. And therefore, people were allowed to make very, very large sums of money while subsidizing that with our health. And so being able to provide reparations to these communities, I think is going to be an important part of moving forward. I have a million more policy suggestions, but I'll turn it back to you so that I don't go too far down the rabbit hole.
That's absolutely fine. We actually have a question that came in from Tasha. She said, exactly. We have a system, but how do we receive the funding from the city?
So when it comes to funding, Congressman Bowman was really talking about this. There's a lot that's going to be coming down the pipeline. And so we really have to position ourselves for that. The people who are going to be talking after me are really well positioned to talk about things like funding. But on an individual basis, we need to be advocating for this kind of funding. And we have a voice, right? We learned last year with these widespread protests that protests yield concessions. And social justice incorporates not just economic justice, but environmental justice. And so when we are hitting the streets, we need to also be hitting the streets for our environmental justice, for our energy justice, and making sure that we are demanding accountability from our city representatives. Sustainable Westchester is a municipal organization, meaning the members of our nonprofit are actually the municipalities in Westchester. And so, I have close relationships with all of these municipal leaders, and I go to city council meetings and town board meetings, and they're not very well attended. You would be very surprised to know what is on your city council agenda and what kind of issues you can have a say on. And so I know that not everybody has enough time, enough energy, enough resources to stay involved in what's happening in the policy arena or in the politics arena. But if you get involved with organizations, particularly environmental justice organizations, then you can contribute to and help with their, market clout, their ability to have a real say. So there are great environmental justice organizations out there. For those of you who are in the New York City area, New York City Environmental Justice Alliance, which features groups like We Act for Environmental Justice, who has been doing this since before I was born, Uprose, another organization, and the newly formed Westchester Environmental Justice Collective, which you can find more information on at wejc.org. But joining a kind of collective like that and getting involved with other groups is really a way to make a big difference. We have to join together. We have more power together. And that's really what I've learned at my job is everything that we do is about aggregation. One person doesn't have that much of a say, but 100 people, 1,000 people, 1,000,000 people absolutely do.
Agreed. Absolutely agreed. Now, I want to touch upon a subject a little bit personal. Congressman Bowman discussed the importance of STEM for our young people, for Black children. Did you experience and have the opportunity to be a part of any of those programs as a young person?
No, not really. The STEM field has grown exponentially since I even got to college. In the 4 years since I've left college, I swear technology and AI and machine learning and all these things have so far past what I was learning. But there are so many good programs out there. I was lucky enough to have a mom that was into environmental law, and that's how I got into this. But really, there's a great curriculum that I would love to mention. It's called Roots of Success, and it's actually a 60-hour 10-module program that covers everything from energy, buildings, water, to financial literacy, to community organization and community organizing and leadership. And it was actually a curriculum that was started in prisons and jails, or essentially to train incarcerated people on the environmental sector. And it is expanded to juvenile detention facilities, it's expanded to just regular old youth programs. But it is a great program, and it's a really low cost program that allows people to get a foundational environmental education that actually prepares them to go into something like 125 different jobs. So things like that are things that that schools can implement in a really cheap way. and really increase, student engagement. But another thing is schools are so well positioned to be learning hubs, right? Schools are these, and to be clean energy hubs and resilience hubs. So there are, schools are huge buildings that have large roofs. And so people they can add solar storage, they can add electric buses that they power with the solar and the storage. And then they could actually use the solar on the roof, or if they put a green roof, for example, different things that they can do that they can actually teach students to provide the maintenance on those kinds of projects, or teach them how to install, right? It could be a kind of trade program. So there's a lot of creative solutions. There's so many people thinking about how to meet our climate goals. And schools, education is a really important place to start, because of course, you can't fix a problem that you don't know exists.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Now, one thing that shocked me that Congressman Bowman had said, I was born in the South Bronx. Currently, I live in Rochelle. So when he made the statement about the Bronx is, like the worst place, with the issues and pollution and so on and so forth, that's absolutely scary, right? What can businesses do to become greener so that they can help their environment and help themselves at the same time?
Yeah, so businesses are eligible to sign up for community solar, just like residents. So that is certainly an option for them. They can also sign up for that same kind of demand response. So those are ways to lower their energy bills. When it comes to getting your local community green, solar is really the way to go. Particularly, when it comes to places like the Bronx, places like Southern Westchester that don't have a lot of space, we have to get really creative with our rooftop solar. But business owners, in providing solar, depending on the size of their roof, they can get paid. You can get paid for having that solar on your roof, for leasing your roof to a solar developer. You can get paid if you have solar plus battery storage for giving energy back to the grid during times when, the utility needs more electricity, and you get paid for that. So there's certainly money-making opportunities, I would say, particularly churches, which also tend to have larger buildings. You can have solar and storage, which not only would provide a way to make money, but also provides a resilience hub for your community. So, when there is inevitably a climate catastrophe, then you could have a climate resiliency hub that your Congress or your Congress, that, your congregation can come to and have a place to charge their phones, or have heat in the winter or cooling in the summer. So it's really important to, and this is actually, it's an energy democracy strategy known as greening community institutions. And it's something that I really believe in. Importantly, just one thing on the funding, the New York Green Bank provides low interest loans for green projects. They are very ready to fund these kinds of projects. And so if you do have a project that you believe is good enough, for basically this kind of loan, and that you can pay it back, seriously, get a meeting with the New York Green Bank. There are resources out there that exist. And oftentimes, as people of color, or, for me, at least as a Black woman, I'm used to being told no and that I can't do it. And sometimes I don't put myself out there. I don't, make the effort, because I just say, oh, what are the odds that that's going to work? Right. But people are ready to give out this money. And so we have to be ready to accept it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So when I think of young people, right, and maybe some of our viewers who are watching, some of our youth who are watching right now, what advice would you give them if they feel like, well, I'm a young person, what can I do to help save the earth, so on and so forth?
As a young person, there's a lot that we can do. I think that the youth right now are blowing me away. I don't even feel like a young person anymore. Life has hardened me up. The dimples might convince you otherwise, but uh, young people, they are doing so much. I mean, they are on the front lines. They are, rejecting the norms of the past, and they're saying, we want a better life, and we are not willing to accept what you are willing to hand over to us.
Yes.
And so I would say that for young people, energy is the crux of everything. I thought I was going to be in marine biology. I'm a scuba diver, and I thought it was going to be me and the fishies, and that's what I was going to do for the rest of my life. And, something brought me to Sustainable Westchester. Something brought me to energy. Shout out to my boss, Dan Welsh, who is just like energy guru, who has let me just, flourish in this. But energy is at the crux of absolutely everything that we do. It's where all the money is. It is where our most impactful climate mitigation strategies are. And so energy, it's not the sexiest. That's what my boss always says. He says, energy isn't sexy. It isn't, but it's so important. And if you want to make a good living with a fair wage, if you want to make a difference, this is the place to be. And we need more Black people in this field. We need more people of color. We need just so much diversity, because with diversity comes, the breadth and wealth of knowledge and experience. And so we are unlikely to meet our climate goals without diversifying, without electrifying, and without this community engagement that we haven't had. And we absolutely deserve a place in the decision-making process, which we haven't really had thus far.
Wow. I just want to say you are amazing. You're awesome. We are getting so much amazing feedback about you, and they're so grateful for all of the knowledge and wisdom that you have. And again, being a Black young lady who is in this field is absolutely phenomenal. You are phenomenal. And I thank you for your time. Okay.
Thank you so much. I'm so glad to be here. And I must say that every speaker following me is incredible, and I'm so excited. So thank you for having me.
Jasmine. Okay. So next up, we will have Raya Salter, who is a member of the New York State Climate Action Council. She will be interviewed by our president of Urban Legacy, Shane Oceanloye.
Raya, good to see you.
Hello, great to be here.
How are you doing tonight?
I am good. How about yourself?
How do you feel about the program so far?
The program is fantastic. And I was saying to myself, why is this the first Black Power Day I've done? Why? Some people like yourself, it takes people like yourself to do the things that just need to be done.
Thank you. With that said, I'm going to use that as segue to ask you about something that you've been doing that I think is incredible. Can I ask about climate, Auntie? Can I start there? Can we start there?
Yeah, absolutely. So yes, all the folks out there, anybody listening, I want you to know I am an energy law and policy expert. I'm an energy and climate justice lawyer. I got books, I got things, I got activism, I got stuff. If you consider me your climate auntie, you can be my climate nephew, niece, whoever you want to be. We in a climate family, we got climate cousins. You can follow Climate Auntie on Instagram. You can follow Climate Auntie on TikTok. I just really just so we can talk about things. And if you've got questions, pitch them to me.
I love it. I just wanted to start there because I thought that was so impactful. Like, you have such an impressive resume and have done so much work as an advocate for energy, because there's a difference even between an activist and an advocate. You take your platform, you take your proximity to power and really push through an energy energy platform. But you're also doing something incredibly innovative that somebody from Generation Z, or I hate saying Zoomers, but Zoomers would do too. And balancing all of that is amazing. And I just want to ask you, how do you what do you feel like we need to do to promote initiatives more and make energy cool? Because just like Jasmine said, energy, well, other people feel like energy isn't sexy. I think energy is incredible, but other people feel or might feel like energy is not sexy. How do we get people talking about energy on a daily basis?
Well, I think that's a great question. I'll back off on the cool thing. I have a 20-year-old daughter who is like cringing somewhere right now. Just because
20-year-old daughter, I love climate auntie. It's amazing. You should be proud.
Thank you so much for saying that. But I want to go back to something that Congressman Bowman said and also Jasmine referred to in terms of how important culture, art, education are to spreading this message. And the real reason that I am climate auntie is because, as you've also heard before, it is Black people and brown people who are at the center of this climate crisis, and they're coming for our homes. The crisis is coming for our people. It's coming for our islands. You're from the Caribbean. It's coming for us, and for everything that we've been through in this country, in this hemisphere, and as far as we've risen to have everything taken because of corporate pollution and capitalism and white supremacy is completely unacceptable. And to me, the number one thing is for folks to understand. And one of the reasons why folks aren't as focused, Black people aren't as focused on climate and energy is intentional exclusion by the environmental movement and others. There's a history of this. This is not something I made up. I got articles, I got things for you. So there's a reason why we have been kept out of this conversation, and it's important for the word to get out there that this is about us. And increasingly, there are more opportunities. There are more opportunities to engage, to get money, to get involved. And I'll even say one thing, it's when we make gains, it tends to get erased.
Right.
The reason why there is a national 40% Justice 40 is because activists, grassroots activists in New York State showed out at the governor's office in 2019, showed out and did a direct action protest and put forward a bill that had that, and they copied it. That is why we have it.
Right. I want to ask you more about that and what you're doing at the state level, because you also have proximity and interact with someone who we also interact with and love and think is incredible as a representative, State Senate Majority Leader Andrea Stewart-Cousins. And you guys have formulated this Climate Action Council, and I want to hear more about what's coming down the pipeline for 2021 and beyond.
Fantastic, important question. And yes, that law I referred to, New York has the most ambitious and most just climate law in the country. 2019, the Climate Leadership and Community Protection Act. That created, yes, through the leadership of Leader Andrea Stewart-Cousins, that created this Climate Action Council. And yes, I am our leader's appointee, one of our leader's appointees to that body. Now, the Climate Action Council is tasked with creating the plan for how we will get to our ambitious energy goals, and that will be turned into law and regulation. Very importantly, there's a group called the Climate Justice Working Group made up of environmental justice advocates and others that is literally devising that criteria of who is a disadvantaged community right now. So right. The feds are looking at us to figure that out. We've got our rep, like we know. We've got Senator Schumer guiding this package through. We are right here and just even getting the word out for all those great questions you asked, Rep, and you asked Ms. Jasmine, so that folks we can start jumping in this.
Excellent. As a follow-up to that, thinking about, the initiatives that will be put forward and how communities are defined as, disadvantaged to put them in position for state and federal funding. A lot of times disadvantaged communities might be labeled as such, and then the money comes down the pipeline. And similar to what I was talking about with Congressman Bowman, the money somehow doesn't seem to make it to the ground level. So my question is, as you guys are formulating these plans and the criteria of what qualifies as a disadvantaged community, How do we make sure that the money gets directly into the hands of local grassroots activists who care about energy and economic justice and equity equally in equal parts, so it does reach it to the Black community?
So you have put your finger on what I think is really one of the most important issues that's happening right now at the state level and at the federal level. Is how do we make sure that this isn't a BlackRock, Wall Street, multi-trillion-dollar investment that doesn't actually enable our, participation from community.
Don't get me started.
I can tell you were asking you were asking all the questions, and it's really important. And so, some pieces of that, and Jasmine alluded to some of that as well. Some pieces of that, and that's things that I'm certainly advocating for at the Climate Action Council, is that we need to make sure that there's rigorous standards for minority and women-owned businesses. As you mentioned, we saw in the recovery package, we didn't get that participation. And so there needs to be plans to provide technical assistance to those businesses. If we're going to have a major multi-billion-dollar offshore wind procurement, and they're telling us, well, there aren't, and we don't have minority offshore wind companies. Okay, so that's just not good enough. I mean, there's things up and down the chain, and to me, one of the big issues is making sure that those standards are there, they're adhered to, and then there are actual supports and technical assistance for for business folks. And there's a lot to be said about how we need to innovate to make sure that money gets into the hands of who it needs to get to.
Okay. So in the light of making sure that I guess the pipeline and the supply line is robust.
Real quick.
Oh, yeah.
Rep said it, and this is something my great movement sister Elizabeth Jean-Pierre of Uprose taught me, and it hadn't occurred to me. We're not building a pipeline. What's a pipeline? Pipeline is with the oil and the gas. That's exactly what we're doing. She said, Miss Raya, we are building let's call it a vine. Let's call it a vine. But this idea of pipeline for our youth, or for, we need a pipeline of folks to line up for jobs. No, we want a vine. Sorry, interrupt. That really hit me.
No. The language is important because language affects culture. Language affects how we treat these things on a daily basis. You have now introduced Vine to my vocabulary for how we get students, how we get entrepreneurs and disadvantaged communities onto the Vine. No, I absolutely love it. A Vine gives life. That was perfect. Thank you. Okay, so then with that question, at the state level of the Vine, how do you work interdisciplinary fields in so that the education system is involved with it, the procurement side of contracting is involved with it? How do you balance those groups so that you're actually getting the population that has actually been disadvantaged, and then making sure that people are contracted equitably without, just like Congressman Bowman said, it's so watered down to say minority. Minority counts as everything that is not white in a white supremacist society. But specifically for a Black community, how do we make sure that Black students get onto the Vine, Black entrepreneurs get onto the Vine, Black community leaders and organizations get onto the Vine? Like, what do we do if we're interacting on a state level?
Yeah, there are a couple things I'll go ahead and mention about our Vine, and I love that we're using our Vine.
Yes, I'm with that.
I'm so glad. Miss Elizabeth really hit me to that. One of the things that happened in New York that we see happening on the federal level, and it's frustrating, when activists wanted to pass the CLCPA, we didn't want the benefits of spending to go to disadvantaged communities. And by the way, it's not the best phrase. I always use it in air quotes. It's not the greatest. It's what we have.
Please find another language for that, and I will use it, please.
Thank you. Right? Nobody likes it. That's clear. Nobody likes it. What we wanted was the spending, the actual dollars. So 40%, and 40%, that's a floor, not a ceiling. It should be more, in our estimation. But we want it to be actual dollars and not benefits, because that is that, and that unfortunately is being reflected on the federal level. Because you can imagine benefits are kind of like a squirrely, standard, and we're already seeing it. Folks are taking the mantle and saying, oh, we're going to plant some trees in so-and-so's neighborhood. And so that's a benefit off the list, so they can run with the bag. And that's not what we want. And so that's really pushing it, for these policies. And also, I also, for one, I'm a lawyer. I've worked in private practice doing energy regulation. I've worked for green groups, but I'm a long-term Westchester resident. I used to work for the Grayston Foundation on Warburton Avenue doing youth programming. Shout out, shout out to YO. And this piece about education and training is very, very near and dear to my heart. And it's something that I'm hawking on the Climate Action Council in a big way, and wanting to see really comprehensive plans from the state. And so what I'll also say is that I encourage people, follow Climate Auntie, reach out to me. I'll give you a link. You can talk to me, but you can get the sign up, get the email alerts for the state process. And if you're interested, you can tune in, you can file comments and get involved too.
Okay. I'm trying to figure out how to frame the next question, because you touched on something that's very important to us. And yes, shout out to Yonkers. I'm saying that as a New Rochelle citizen, shout out to Yonkers as well. A lot of the conversations that I've had lately were about the fact that we need to have a more borderless perspective on how we treat the Black community, so that we could advocate en masse. I tell people that Urban Legacy, since we are digital first, we are borderless. And I've been talking to organizations in Mount Vernon and in Yonkers that we need to, there's no natural connection with us besides the cross county, but we need more interaction with each other to really exemplify these qualities and bring them to life through doing business with each other, getting contracts, doing partnerships and things like that. So who would you say has done incredible work with not only participating in sustainability, but you could, limit it to that to just show what they're doing, but building partnerships as well. Who has the state seen do amazing things?
Well, there's definitely a ton of different groups that are doing fantastic work, and throughout the state. I'm thinking about members of the New York Renews Coalition who are doing spectacular things. One group that and this is not Southern Westchester, but there's a fantastic woman named Brigitte Vicente who has a group called the Inner City Green Team, and she does what she calls a white glove concierge. Concierge. Pinkies up. Concierge service for door-to-door food scraps and food waste and recycling. So she works in public housing and NYCHA housing. This is New York City, and she is able to do a tremendous amount of recycling in public housing. Why is that one of the things that's a model that needs to be, uplifted, and it's so important? Because we have to reduce the waste that goes into these landfills, et cetera, because it's that incineration that's part of the picture of what's making us sick. And I mention that because she is on the waste panel that's on this Climate Action Council process, and has put forth some fantastic suggestions about how we can do, how we can uplift that model. I must have timed myself. I must be talking to you. But yes, and we need to do that. And to Jasmine's point, new organization in Westchester, Westchester Environmental Justice Collective, we need to build more of these bridges between Mount Vernon, New Rochelle, Yonkers, so we can stand up and make sure we get what we need to get. And we can do this on our own terms. You heard Rhett. Right. He was like, maybe your congressperson thinks it's a good idea, because he knows he thinks it's a good idea.
I certainly hope my congressperson.
I hope he thinks that. So we can do some stuff on our own terms, and maybe it's okay if we don't know all the answers of how, you know, the Environmental Protection Agency is going to rate ABCD watershed. Maybe it's okay that we have the support from the folks who do, and we can pull on the experts who can tell us what to do.
Right. With that thought in mind, so much of what we expect as a community historically has been for the government to provide instead of us offering proposals. A lot. I tell my team, less recommendations, more proposals. If you want to see something done, if you see a problem or see a gap, you are now instantly in charge of filling that gap. So what could we do to make sure that organizations are pushing more proposals through as opposed to recommendations? And I know that we're pressed for time. We have 3 minutes left. So I'm going to package that question with, what do you feel are the major gaps? What do you feel are the major opportunities for a business to get into and come with a proposal? Because there's such a, there's HVAC, there's lighting. You brought up, how waste management and food management gets into the picture. There's so many opportunities. Sometimes people don't know where to start, and they don't realize that they already have the skills to participate in these new wheelhouses. So how do we get them there?
Yeah, this is an important question. There really are a lot of opportunities. And again, that in this first instance, I really think that this informational piece of getting the word out to folks that, that there are RFPs and ponds to respond to, that there really are opportunities. The New York Green Bank, they just, through NYSERDA, they just put in a petition to approve $400 million in spending in the next 5 years, investments in quote unquote disadvantaged communities. And right? And that's a lot of money. And there's a lot of folks coming after me. Please ask them and make sure they answer these questions, because a lot of that is geared towards this energy efficiency piece. And that's great. And a lot of it, to be honest, they are still trying to figure out exactly what they're going to do, because part of it is they're shifting funding because of the state climate law.
Right.
As Jasmine said, there's definitely a need for co-creation of what this stuff looks like, and policy and advocacy. And just really in the first instance, just the information that this is happening, and building community so we can come together, share our knowledge, and step up. I mean, this is stuff that's like, when's the last time this has happened in a generation? Not in my lifetime.
No,
that I
not at all.
I was playing Tetris or Atari, Pac-Man, Ms. Pac-Man. That was my stuff.
Right. And the need is so much more compounded by what we went through in 2020, the event that shall not be named, and it's all coming together at one time. It causes problems, but it creates so many opportunities for us to solve problems as well. So thank you so much for framing how we can begin solving these problems from the state level down, So thank you so much, Raya Salter, Esquire, aka Climate Auntie, coolest thing ever. 20-year-old daughter, be proud. Raya, thank you so much for joining us tonight.
Thank you so much.
Absolutely. The next guest we are going to have is Dwayne R. Norris. He is the co-founder of Soulful Synergy, and he's going to be introduced by Shivi Jain, who is one of our junior managers.
Hello. Hi, Dwayne. Thank you so much for being here. All the speakers have been fabulous. I've loved to hear from everyone, and I'm so excited to talk to you and continue this streak of awesome discussion. First,
likewise.
Just to start, can you describe what Soulful Synergy is and what role do you play in the company?
Sure, I'll do my best. I've also been enjoying this conversation. It's phenomenal and great to see so much wisdom and excellence and intelligence on this panel. So Soulful Synergy is a company I started with my best friend and business partner, really in the lane of community development. we want to build healthier communities, stronger communities, more vibrant communities. What we understand is that requires a holistic approach. It really does require tackling everything from wages to housing to healthcare. And we don't want to be all things to all people. So we build collaborative relationships. So that soulful synergy is us putting our soul into our work, and the synergy is how we bring together people to solve bigger challenges. One of the main challenges that we work to solve is workforce development, or is finding people wages and ways for them to sustain a good life and move into higher stations of income. And so workforce development is really kind of at the staple and the core of what we provide. We provide trainings in construction industry and clean energy industry, moving into urban farming and tech. And so, these are industries that are growing, that have a lot of growth potential, that there's demand for the labor almost in excess of where, people's skill sets currently are. And so once you get trained, there's almost immediate opportunities in each of these growing sectors. And the wages are good. You also don't need a lot of formal education. So, college degrees and some of the things that are not always prevalent in our community give us more access. It reduces some of the barriers to entry. So Soulful Synergy is that. We are a full service, socially conscious, minority owned consulting company. And we're really looking to see how we can build thriving communities through these kind of creative, collaborative approaches.
I love that. It seems like the whole design of your whole company just is like extremely catered towards what's really needed. What inspired you to kind of create Soulful Synergy? Has it been something you kind of aspired to want to create for your whole life, or is it something newer?
The vision continues to evolve as I get older and better, and I'm sure this will happen to you. You think you plan out your life when you're young, and you think you know exactly what direction you're going, and then things adjust. And I always knew I wanted to be in business for myself, and I always knew I wanted to make an impact. And at 19, I had the opportunity to work under a mentor, my aunt, in the financial services field, and I learned a lot about wealth creation, building a business, and really helping people plan financially and try to leave a legacy. So a lot of my clients were Black, minority, etc., and that's the trajectory that I took. And a few years ago, this pivot to clean energy really happened with me and my business partner, because we were doing all this workforce development. And again, the writing is on the wall. If you look at, everybody who's been speaking tonight, the writing is on the wall. Trillions of dollars. You heard that with a T from Congressman Bowman. You heard it, billions of dollars just here in New York State. From Raya. The money is coming, and either we're going to be prepared for it or we're not. Either we're going to be there to do the work and take advantage of the opportunity, or somebody else is. My colleagues and mentors in this space, because I am kind of the new guy still learning, right? I have people who have been doing this work 10 plus years who educate me, and the way we refer to it is, this is the green industrial revolution. The industrial revolution that happened, in the past, that set the railroads up, and you saw so much wealth transfer. You saw so many different industries really explode, and so much wealth created in the hands of a few who were really able to dominate those industries, steel, the railroads, and factories. And this is really kind of that rebirth. And either, again, we're prepared for that opportunity or we're not. And so Soulful Synergy really wants to make sure that we're preparing a workforce. So I'm sure you'll ask questions, but I'd love to tell you about our training programs and kind of how we're trying to make sure that we're keeping our people ahead of where the curve is.
Yeah, that was just like a perfect way to segue into my next question. Like for me, I'm a junior in high school right now. Like how would you suggest I can get involved? Just like Jasmine was saying, like the youth has such a big impact in this like new growing like environmental consciousness. Like how do you suggest the youth gets involved? And like what can Soulful Synergy do for that?
So, there's a lot of ways, right? There's no shortage of ways to get involved. There's some that are going to be more lucrative than others, some that are going to be more kind of exciting. And I think that's kind of what Congressman was saying, is that the educational structure needs to change so that there's exposure to these things early on. And so one of the ways that we're helping is we go into schools and we do some educational workshops, and we want to do more of those. So I would say definitely reach out to us. And if we can come and do a 2-hour presentation at your school about the green economy, we would love to do that, bring in speakers and other people who can educate young kids about the clean energy industry. We have training programs that'll be happening at West Cop as well in Westchester. And after the end of our training, we also have our participants go out and to do some energy audits. And essentially that's going through your building, your school, your church, whatever that building is, and doing an assessment, counting the light fixtures, understanding how much energy consumption is being used there, So there's some kind of like really easy ways that we try to introduce people into the industry. For somebody like yourself who's young, if you've already charted a career path, by all means, go that career path. I'm not going to tell you not to. If you have not charted a career path and you're looking at clean energy as a space, we have a free training program that's been funded by NYSERDA. It's like $4,000 worth of training that we provide for free. We have a next cohort that's starting in June. It's a 60-hour technical training, and it's really meant to accelerate your learning in the clean energy industry, to really understand what are the different types of opportunities that exist in this space, because it's not just one thing. As many of the presenters have said, there's roles on the front end and on the back end. There's roles in auditing. There's roles in installation of these lighting systems and HVAC systems. There's roles in finance, administration. There's roles in measurement and verification and inspection. There's roles in project management. There's roles in operations and maintenance. If you want to be a facilities manager, like there's just all these different lanes. There's roles in sales. I started my career in sales. And if you've got the gift of gab and you like to speak to people, there's ways you can go out and educate your community and empower your community through education and helping them understand how they as business owners and homeowners can reduce their energy costs and consumptions by taking advantage of free incentives that NYSERDA and Con Edison provide. So, I mean, as far as how you can get involved, I'll say definitely reach out to me after this is over. I will put you in contact with as many resources as you need. But I would say advocate with your school to have some form of clean energy program brought in. They may not go as far as getting solar on the roof, but they can bring in speakers and presenters to come and educate your school. And then connect with these other free resources that have been discussed here tonight and start to learn, because you need to really get that education to figure out what lane or what part of the clean energy economy makes the most sense to you or is most exciting to you.
Yeah, that's awesome. I know a big thing that Soulful Synergy kind of advocates is like all ages, and you kind of just discuss like the complete like variety of different options that you can get involved. So like, how can people like even younger than me, like how can they get involved versus people who are way like later on in their career and maybe decide that they want to get into like energy and clean energy?
Sure. So, one of the things that we do like to say is we train anyone from Yale to jail. And so anyone, who's college level degreed, anyone coming home and youth, right? Because this industry has room for everyone, regardless of skill sets. As I said, I came from a financial services background, a kind of sales background, and I'm finding a way to have a way to participate through using my skills to empower our communities. And so I'll say if you're young, again, it's exposure. It's really kind of just like the basic fundamentals of how energy works, how your lighting systems work, how your HVAC systems work. It can start with some of that basic and really understanding also the connectivity, right? We're trying to help this next generation understand how to reverse climate change, right? If we get that far, right? God forbid. But we have a short period of time to do that. So there's such a need to make sure that this younger generation understands what greenhouse gases are, what carbon emissions are, what they're doing to the planet, what they can do on a very day-to-day basis to have impact, and what kind of careers, again, are opportunities. As you get a little bit older, like yourself, again, if you choose not to go the traditional college route, there's trades, there's hands-on trades that can get you into this industry with a lot of opportunities, experience, and good paying jobs. The CLCPA that Raya referred to and some of the others referred to is allocating a lot of resources towards training. We, as Soulful Synergy, have done well to partner with really strong players, Con Edison being one of them, Willdan, which is a large national company. They trade on the New York Stock Exchange, who does energy efficiency in a very large way. We partner with these two organizations, as well as 5 other smaller minority-owned businesses, to create this little collaborative that we call the Clean Energy Academy. We have pursued funding from NYSERDA, which is our New York State Energy Research and Development Authority, for workforce training. So we're trying to bring workforce training for these opportunities that we know are coming down the pipeline, right? As she mentioned, billions of dollars, trillions of dollars, 40% has to go into Black and brown neighborhoods, disadvantaged communities. Again, we're either going to be ready for that work or not. And so, we've been applying to this funding source to make sure that we're preparing a workforce who's ready to take advantage of these opportunities when they come. So that when the developers are coming in, one, we want them to be Black-owned developers, right? Who can develop these new buildings, who can put the solar panels on, the green roofs on, who can do the energy retrofits and the overhaul of these older systems. But if, God forbid, there is a white company No, I'm just kidding. But if there is white, companies that come in, they can't pretend like they can't find local talent to also work on these projects. And a lot of times that's what happens is they get the state subsidizes, the state and the federal government subsidize a lot of work in these areas. They call it Section 3, or they'll call it some type of money that comes from HUD, Housing and Urban Development. And they're supposed to hire locally. They're supposed to do their best to find people in the local community that they can put into employment opportunities. What they'll try to do often is get an exemption or a waiver that says we tried to find people locally to work, but we couldn't. And so now we're saying, no, you can't have that excuse because we have the people ready, shovel ready to go to work. And, that's one of the ways in which we're trying to make sure that we have our people prepared and positioned to take advantage of what is, again, the clean energy revolution, the green industrial revolution.
That's amazing. And it's there's so many opportunities. I feel like there's so many people who just need to know about them. So like for someone, like let's say if I were to just graduate and I wanted to get involved, how long do you think it would take to fully like get involved and like start getting paid and like make it a career for me?
Yep. No, it's a great question. So the current training that we're running is a 60-hour intensive training. And that's why we say Yale to jail, because truthfully, there's people that have already been in the industry or even people that, have some type of relatable, transferable skills who take our training and find it like, again, the doors open for them. It's things that they weren't being taught. So let me give you a kind of overview of what the training entails. We spend the first part going over something called the green economy. And so we've been talking a lot about clean energy here today. For our first 6 hours of the 60-hour training program or so, we'll go over top down what the clean energy industry looks like. That means at the top, the people like the legislatures, our senators, our governor who make the laws and who kind of oversee and regulate the industry. Then we go next level down is where is all this money coming? So now that they've set laws and policies that say, we have to become more energy efficient by this date. Right now, 85% carbon emissions reductions by 2050, right? When they say that kind of law and they write that kind of law, they have to put certain things into action, which causes money to be released for what we call incentive programs, things that incentivize businesses and building owners to take action to make their systems more efficient. So now when we look at the top, where's the policy being set, where's the money flowing, we can understand where the jobs are going. And so a lot of the jobs, again, in those auditor roles, the sales and outreach roles, because you need to be out there educating the community that this money is available, that the incentives are available, that if you don't do this now, it's going to cost you more later, or that you'll be penalized later. So we look top down at the industry. What does it look like? Where are the jobs and where are the opportunities coming in? Our 60-hour trainings right now are focused on systems. So inside of your building, you have in a kind of easy way to understand, you have electrical systems and thermal systems. So right now we teach on really helping to understand the difference between energy efficiency and renewable energy. So renewables, a lot of the stuff we talked about, solar, wind, geothermal. And then energy efficiency is how do we make our current buildings more efficient? Because not everybody has the ability to put solar, but they can change out their light fixtures. They can swap out their boilers. They can use clean heat and electrified heat and get away from the fossil fuels. So we're really focused on those systems. And so the rest of the 60 hours encompasses all of that. But why we've been successful in getting people jobs shortly after the training is that we focus on the exact same tools and calculators and softwares that Con Edison uses in their large program. Their largest program, I believe right now, is the Small Medium Business Program. It's about $30 million a year that they use to incentivize building owners, small business owners to make these energy transitions. And so we train our participants on exactly what's being used in the industry. And so we've seen after the 60 hours of training, and then we have another about 20 hours of career accelerator, we call it, but it's really a resume development, how to make yourself more professional. We help you with interview prep and we connect you to job opportunities. We're seeing people get placed within sometimes 1 month to 2 months right after the training program is complete. Last year, we trained 120 people. 20 of them were in school and weren't looking for jobs, but out of the other 100 that were job seekers, over 80% are currently employed and in jobs that they're passionate about and excited about. This year, we're on track to train another probably 200 plus. And these are funding sources that NYSERDA has provided to us. And we're seeing really strong 80% placement. And we're going to continue to leverage that to make sure that Black and brown people are at the front of this clean energy industry and revolution. That's
amazing. I feel like I keep on saying amazing, but that's literally what everything you're saying is.
Yeah.
It it's like that 60 hours just gets you completely set. Like after that 60 hours, you're just like ready to start working, which is awesome. So
within this ecosystem, I'll say this to be fair, right? Because again, the clean energy industry is broad. There's waste management, there's water treatment, again, renewable solar. There's these other industries. We're really hyper focused on a lot around the building efficiency and leveraging Con Edison, which is a major player in this space, and having them as one of our partners gives us access to their large list of contractors. You know, they have hundreds of subcontractors under Con Edison's programs. That allows us to create those career pathways and give people opportunities into this space. And so I won't say that there's not many other places, but you take our 60-hour training and we're going to go to work to find you the right type of opportunity that aligns with your skill set. If you know you want to be in sales, we're going to work hard with that list of subcontractors to find you a sales position. One of the other things I think that does make our program unique is we also leverage a version of like a capstone. So again, sometimes you take the training, and you're not exactly sure what route you want to go, or you think you want to go the route of being an auditor or an installer. What we try to do is get you some hands-on experience before you commit fully to that position. So we'll get you some introductory experience going into a building and actually performing some of these energy audits and assessments, or doing some of this calculation work. And then you'll see, okay, is this the route I want to take? Or if not, we find you another path. And so that kind of hands-on, skills ends up being extremely valuable for the participant, because when they go in their job interviews, they actually have something to talk about. Not just that they took a 60-hour training, but that they also have experienced this in the real field, and that they've applied the skills that they've learned, and that they now have a better sense of it and can be more passionate about it. So we found that to be another really impactful way that the program has been able to work.
Yeah, I love that, because it's so specific that it's just so effective at the same time, which is like amazing. So you talk, kind of circling back and like almost like as a closing statement ish. You were talking about how I guess like big contractors, how we like in these Black and brown communities, you don't want exactly like white companies coming in. Like how do you address that to elected officials to prevent that from happening?
I mean, we've talked about it tonight, but it's literally still in the process, right? So they're still defining the language of exactly what constitutes a disadvantaged community. So the Climate Action Council that Raya sits on, and the Climate Justice Working Group and the Just Transition Working Group are defining still the language of what is a disadvantaged community, but they're also defining how the money is going to flow into these communities. So I won't say that we know exactly how to stop that yet, or combat that, or make sure, but I would say definitely keep putting that information out. The Climate Action Council has an email address, NYSERDA, who's heavily involved, email address, and at the state level. So put your concerns out there. One of the ways that we're trying to make sure that we position ourselves is so that once these criteria are defined about exactly what defines a disadvantaged community and what zip codes those are going to be, and then also how the money is going to flow, we want to be part of the community outreach team that's going to go in these communities and educate people. Because it's all fine and good to earmark money, but if people don't know what's coming, you have to make sure that they know about where the opportunities are. And so I won't say I know exactly the answer of how to stop that, but I know part of the way is to make sure that we're ready for it. Because again, it's coming, whether we want it to, whether we like it to. Clean energy is coming, the money is coming, and we have to be positioned to be able to take part in that clean energy economy.
Yes, definitely. And these
I'll say one thing, and we're not right now. So right now, if you look at the population of New York State, it's about 55% white and 18% Black. If you look at the clean energy industry and where the jobs are, it's about 75 to 77% white and only 7% Black. So we have this gap where we're 18% of the population, but only about 7% of the jobs within an industry, again, that has billions of dollars, where you don't need a college degree. 60+% of participants in the clean energy industry don't have a degree, and average wages are $60,000 to $70,000. So, I'm not going to advocate that only getting a job is the way to go. I definitely advocate for businesses. If you have marketing expertise, if you have outreach expertise, if you have contracting business, but definitely if you are looking for employment opportunities, this is an industry that still has a lot of growth potential.
Yeah, for sure. And it just, like, especially the Black and brown communities are the communities being disproportionately impacted by global warming. So this is the time to get involved and the place to get involved. So this was so helpful. I hope everyone watching got as much knowledge and insight as you were able to give me. I think we have another question. Been saying if there were any MWB certified firms in the room in the green construction space, please. Oh wait, never mind. Sorry.
No, that's all right. That's a good one. I mean, we're an MWBE firm, so Minority Women Business Enterprise, and it definitely is something that we need to form these coalitions. That's why I mentioned, for us to pursue all this NYSERDA funding that's we've been able to be awarded in the past, 24 months, 18 to 24 months, we've been awarded 1.6 million in funds from NYSERDA to do workforce training. It has been a collaborative. We work with other MWBEs, and we want to build out these kind of coalitions. So definitely, if you are one, reach out to Shane and his people. So let's work together.
Yeah, definitely. Exactly what Shane was saying before. We need to come together so we can be just so strong. So, like I was saying, this was amazing. And I can't wait to see what all the other speakers have to say next. Like, I'm just blown away. So I'm so, now moving on, I'm so excited to introduce Keith Kinch, the founder of BlocPower, being interviewed by Mariam Mohammed, our operations director.
Thank you, Shivi. Hi, Keith. How are you? Could you hear me, Keith? I'm not sure if your sound is on. Could you hear me well, Keith?
I can hear you now. Yeah, there's a lag in my
Awesome.
end.
Awesome.
How you doing?
Sounds
Happy Earth Day.
Good. Happy Earth Day. So I want to jump right in. Tell us a little bit about yourself. Tell us a little bit about BlocPower. And if you don't mind, tell us how you came up with that name.
Sure. So Keith Kinch, I'm the co-founder of BlocPower. Danelle came up with that name. It does come from Black Power. So it is a play on Black Power. We call it BlocPower. And the goal is to use blocks of projects in local neighborhoods to organize to complete clean energy projects. And in doing so, you're not only providing cleaner air and you're building sustainable neighborhoods, but you're also generating generational wealth. So that's where the name came from. And Danelle and I, we both grew up in Brooklyn, East New York, Bushwick, in the 80s and 90s when it wasn't the best times to live out there. So we saw firsthand the need to go back and invest in communities we grew up in. So, BlocPower, we're a climate tech startup. We've been around 7 years. We've completed over 7 years. And what we do is we have software that allows the ability to analyze buildings, finance projects, and then once the projects are completed, we monitor savings and measurement and verification. So we work with houses and worship, single family homes, multi-unit homes, to install solar, new windows, air source heat pumps. And the goal is to get as many buildings as possible off gas and oil and electricity, and get them onto electricity. And so we're not only dealing with climate change and climate crisis, we're also dealing with health crisis. We learned a lot through COVID-19 last year and this year. And also, when we complete each project, we do two things. We either work with contractors to hire locally, so generating wealth for our own communities, or we hire minority women business-owned contractors to complete projects as well. We're backed by investors like for capital, and definitely sustainable Westchester and other folks in the state to complete projects. So we're good.
Sorry about that, Keith. I think your connection was a little choppy, so I didn't hear everything clearly.
Hold on. Can you hear me now? Yeah. Is it better or worse?
It's much better, and I hate to do this, but could you repeat what you said, because it was so choppy? I was not able to hear it, and I know it's valuable information.
I do it 8 times a day. No problem. We're a climate tech startup. We completed over 1,000 projects in the last 7 years. Our software allows us to analyze buildings, finance buildings, projects, complete clean energy projects, and also monitor the buildings post completion of projects. We're verification, and to make sure that we actually build the new building systems are optimal performance. So whether it's solar windows, air source heat pumps, the buildings get buildings off oil and gas, and get them to electricity to electrify the buildings. With every project we complete, the triple bottom line, it's definitely completing projects. We're making the air cleaner, we're lowering carbon emissions, and then we're creating jobs locally or working with contractors that are Black brown owned to also generate generational wealth. So work with folks, like I said, Sustainable Westchester, Con Edison, NYSERDA. We have investors like Report Capital that have been with us from the beginning. And I mean, I'm trying. No, see now.
Okay, Keith, you were a little choppy again, but it's okay. A second ago, you were perfect. Like literally just perfect. And I said, I don't know what just happened. When you were walking, it was perfect. Okay, you're perfect again.
When I was walking, I need to walk the whole time. Fine, let's do it.
It's probably our ancestors playing with this energy.
No problem.
All right. That's fine. So I want to ask you to speak a little bit about investment angel, if you can do that.
Investment angel in what sense? Is investments in general, or just what? How would you like me to talk about it? There's because I can give two answers. One, I can talk about something BlocPower is doing now with a.
Yes, please. What you're doing now, please. Yes, we hear you perfectly. You're awesome.
Perfect. Okay. Okay. Perfect. So over the last 3 weeks, BlocPower, we launched a climate impact note, which allowed anyone, whether you want to invest $5 or you want to invest $5 million, to invest in low to moderate income clean energy projects and state of the neighborhoods, right? And that is the first step to getting everyone to have buy-in and also have equity in projects. And with every investment, there's a 5.5% return. So if you $5, $1,000, doesn't matter. Our original goal was to raise $25,000 over, I guess, 7 weeks. We raised $1 million, right, in 7 weeks. So we're able to get as many people, not just in New York City, but across the country, to buy into the idea that, hey, this is not just about climate crisis, this is health crisis, this is a racial crisis, this is an economic crisis. How do we use this time, to the other speakers that spoke, to build infrastructure in our communities and create wealth? So, through our software, we target inefficient buildings, and we work with building owners to, help them lower their costs, better their buildings, better the communities, but in doing so, we're creating jobs. Finally, how these projects require capital, right? I think we talk about it live, so when I start money like this is, everyone's out for capital, right? Not everyone can say, here's a project that's $100. I can put $20,000 down. We provide a no modality lease option where a builder owner can install such as mini splits, air source heat pumps, solar, anything. And
so Keith, for some reason, it's still a little choppy, unfortunately, and I don't know why. But I will say, I know the information you're giving is so important, and the people need to hear it. What we'll do is if this is okay with you, a separate interview, and we'll post it so our reviewers can view it, because I think I'm just so upset that all of this information is not. There you go again. See, every time you move, it's fine. So if you can repeat a little bit of what you said.
Sure. I was just saying that the goal is to help build those projects. So we, one of the barriers, as mentioned by several of the speakers, is upfront capital. And
yes, Keith, I apologize for interrupting again, but it is still choppy. What we'll do is we'll do a separate interview, and that way the viewers can hear all of the important information you have to share. I would like to thank you for being here, and I'm looking forward to meeting you again. Right now, we are going to have our president of Urban Legacy, Mr. Shane Oceanloye. Again, thank you, Shane.
Absolutely. Thank you, Miriam. I just want to thank everyone for joining us tonight. Tonight was about you. Tonight was about providing value to everybody that's listening and showing you that no matter who you are, no matter what you're doing, you can participate in the clean energy economy and own it. Not just be someone's employee, not just be a consumer of it, but be a part of the supply vine. Be a part of the people who are getting government contracts to provide sustainable fields and clean energy and clean tech. You can do it. Whatever your lane is, clean energy needs it. And please reach out to us so we could connect you to all of the speakers tonight. We're going to bring Keith Kinch back. Keith, thank you for joining us tonight. We definitely want to hear about everything that BlocPower is doing. And similar organizations. We're going to touch on investment opportunities. We're going to touch on how it connects to local organizations and churches who could lead by example into clean energy. Thank you, Raya Salter, for joining us and explaining how the state prioritizes clean energy needs and thinks about it. And thank you, Climate Auntie, on top of that, for all of the work you do on social media, because that changes culture. Thank you to Dwayne for joining us and teaching us how to get our students into the clean energy field, how they could build and take the skills that they have and apply it to clean energy. It's not just kids who are strong in STEM. It's not just students who are strong in STEM, but if you have selling skills, if you have management skills, you could bring those into clean energy as well. Thank you to, of course, thank you to Congressman Bowman for being just incredible and bringing us the high level of what the federal government can do for us on a daily basis, and really bringing all of that information down and showing us what's going to happen for 2021. And actually, just as much, thank you, Jasmine Graham, because she was integral to putting all of this together and helped Urban Legacy put all of these organizations together. So again, we could bring all of our viewers as much value per second as possible. So thank you, Jasmine. I have to thank my team because you guys were incredible tonight. I love the questions. We stuck to our guns. We brought it to the ownership of clean energy, and we got some new language. We have to become a part of the vine of clean energy. So thank you for everyone. Thank you everyone for coming out tonight. This is what Urban Legacy is for, to show you how you can own these emerging fields. We're going to be talking in the coming months. We're going to be talking about technology in general. We're going to be talking about legacy systems such as law and accounting and finance. We're going to be talking about the other green economy, which is the end of prohibition. And I'm going to have different Congress people come on and discuss that as well. So please like and subscribe on our YouTube page. I know that every YouTuber and influencer says that. So I guess we have to say, please like and subscribe so that we could show you these amazing things. And again, you, whoever is here with us tonight, we want to show you how you can own a piece of this and how we can help bring the Black community along on the journey of growing in the clean energy sector. So thank you everyone for coming out tonight. Have an excellent night, and we will have another event for you very soon.